Right. Well, I'm going to make it very plain to you, Lord Condon, that the reason why potentially relevant material was not handed over to the coroner is because you were sitting on it, knowing that something had gone wrong in Paris linked to the activities of British state agencies.
You are suggesting, are you, that Lord Condon was part of a criminal conspiracy?
Well, I'm suggesting, yes, that he's part of an agreement.
That is one of the most serious allegations that could ever be made of someone in my position, and I unequivocally, totally refute it as a blatant lie.
If, in September 1997, this information had gone public, nobody would have spoken anymore about the paparazzi, about Henry Paul. The only thing the whole world would have focused on would have been Diana's fears, Diana's predictions on how she would be killed by the British establishment.
In 1995, Diana summarized her fears in a phone call to a producer of this film.
If you're a strong woman in my environment, you're a problem. So I'm a hell of a problem. I don't have time, an awful lot of time for hobbies, but keeping alive, one of them. Keeping alive, keeping alive, keeping alive, keeping alive.
Sadly, she signally failed in this quest. Lord Condon wasn't the only senior policeman to hide the lawyer's note. Lord Stevens, his successor as police chief, concealed it for a further 3 years. Both men broke the law. Both men were made lords by the Queen.
I'd like to be a queen of people's hearts, in people's hearts. But I don't see myself being queen of this country.
Diana died soon after arrival at the hospital, and although she had been stripped of her royal status in life, in death her corpse mysteriously became royal property. Within hours, royal representatives had given orders for her body to be partially embalmed, a process that conveniently made it impossible for anyone to tell if she had been pregnant. Attention then turned to the body of the driver, Henri Paul. Before blood tests had even been completed, the French authorities were already insisting that he was drunk as a pig, although the only alcohol he is known to have consumed that night were 2 single Ricards. This is Henri Paul minutes before the fatal crash. Far from looking drunk as a pig, he seems to be sober as a judge. An autopsy was carried out on Henri Paul's body by Professor Dominique Lecomte, a doctor who is notorious in France for covering up medical evidence that is likely to embarrass the state. If her own account is to be believed, she conducted the world's worst autopsy on the corpse of Henri Paul, committing at least 58 basic errors. Every medical expert at the inquest agreed that her results were not only inept, but biologically inexplicable too, and that her report was untruthful.
We have Professor Lecomte giving an account of events which, on the face of it, cannot be true.
So you are pushing at an open door. There are clear inconsistencies in Professor Lecomte's account.
The blood tests carried out by Dr. Pepin were equally unbelievable.
We are all agreed that the explanation offered by Dr. Pepin and Professor Lecomte together for carboxyhemoglobin concentrations in the blood samples is implausible and can be discounted.
Yes, so one is left with either analytical error or a mystery.
Suspicions grew at the inquest that the blood tested by Lecomte and Pepin had not come from Henri Paul at all, not least because it contained lethally high levels of carbon monoxide.
Professor, you said you found it astonishing, the similarity. 1.73, 1.74, 1.75. What are you suggesting there? That suggests to you that the results have been cooked, or what?
That would be my interpretation.
You mentioned that one explanation is that the blood samples didn't, in fact, come from Henri Paul.
That's the most obvious explanation, that it isn't actually Henri Paul's blood we're looking at.
The idea of a classic switcheroo may sound far-fetched, but every scientist involved in the inquest signed a joint statement saying that the blood test results for Henri Paul were biologically inexplicable. Professor Lecomte and Dr. Pepin refused to attend the inquest, even though as citizens of the European Union, they were legally obliged to. They were protected by the French government, who publicly cited reasons of public order for the refusal. However, it has since emerged that the real reason was the protection of state secrets and the essential interests of the nation.
This is the law the Ministry of Justice has used to help and protect Professor Lecomte and Dr. Pépin. So the fact, the legal fact, is that there are state secrets that are protected and that Professor Lecomte and Dr. Pépin know about.
In 2006, a team of scientists offered to carry out DNA analysis on some of the samples to determine if the blood really was Henri Paul's. They were told by the French authorities that the samples no longer exist.
Well, my husband's side were very busy stopping me. Diana was unstable. They decided that was the problem.
The inquest spent weeks examining Diana's love life in minute detail and considering whether she was pregnant when she died. But why?
Whether Diana was pregnant or not, or whether she was actually going to marry Dodi Fayed or not, is not important. It's whether the establishment believed she was pregnant or believed she was going to marry Dodi. That's important. And there's no doubt at that moment, the majority of them did believe both those things.
What did become clear was that within hours of Diana's death, her body was pumped full of embalming fluid, so no pregnancy tests were possible. And soon after, she had her reproductive organs removed under the watchful eye of the royal coroner.
There is a trip, the trip from Paris, 45, how can you embalm a body? And very short distance of travel.
Why do you think they embalmed her, to hide the pregnancy?
Because they had to corrupt the body because she was pregnant. She had to take all her guts.
So, was Diana pregnant at the time of her death? We'll never know for sure, because the French and British authorities destroyed the evidence. And the blood tests which were taken when she arrived at the hospital, and which could have confirmed if she had just become pregnant, have mysteriously vanished. But ask yourself this: would the British establishment have allowed Muslim blood to enter the royal lineage? And how far would they be prepared to go to stop it happening?
Deep down, we see them now as an establishment that are capable of murder, which is quite serious.
I was very bad, Larry, so blubbering. I just felt really sad and full of empty. I thought, bloody hell, what have I done for this bloody family? If you want to be like me, you've got to suffer. Yep, you have to. And then you get what you... Get what you want? No, get what you deserve, perhaps.